Welcome back to the N-scale layout, everyone. Made a lot of progress since the last video, so let's go through everything that I've done. I've got the inner main line track completely glued down and soldered, and it's connected to the outer main line track here. I've got the little plastic rail joiners here to isolate it. I've got all of the bus wiring done underneath the table. So I'm using this, I think it's 14 gauge wire. It's like speaker wire that I got from Home Depot for the bus wiring. And then I'm using 24 gauge doorbell wire from Ace Hardware for the feeder wires. And then I've got these little things from Home Depot that I got, like little, you can put 3 wires, 3 different terminals in, and just close that, snap it, and it just joins the wires together. So for every location where there's a node where the feeder wire goes up to the track, I've got those. So the inner main line and the outer main line they both have their own complete bus wire loops. So you can see that there's 2 sets of positive and negative. So I've got all of that wired up. I think I have enough feeder wires. I've got them on the inner main line, and the inner main line has 3 turnouts, which makes it a little more finicky. So I've got a feeder wire here, here, there, and then on both sides of that turnout, and over there on that side of that turnout, and then over here there's another one under the tunnel, and then one right here before the diamond. For the outer main line, we've got a feeder wire here, right here in the middle of the turnouts, right here, and then one over there, one there, one over there, and then one in the tunnel. So I think that should be enough. However, I am running into some issues now. I've got a couple of these old controllers. The train, it just seems to be stuttering more as it goes over the turnouts, even more than it was before when I just had that breadboard set up, which is kind of odd. So I'll take a look as it goes over this turnout right here. And you see how the lights kind of flicker there. And if you're not going fast enough, it will stall out there. And I think this could just be because the frogs here are not powered. So there's this little tab. If I were to power them, you can see that like this whole piece here, that's the frog, I guess. That whole solid metal piece there. If I were to connect that tab to one of the feeder wires, that entire piece would be electrified at that voltage. So depending on which way the switch is thrown and which way you want the train to be going, that needs to be able to switch with it, which makes it a little more complicated. So over here on these turnouts, I just went ahead and soldered them up so that these frogs are the same voltage as the inner rail, just because I have them pinned right now to be straight, because they're not connected to anything yet. And that seemed to solve the problem for those turnouts. But for these ones, I still want these ones to be able to be switched, because they're actually connected. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. If that's the problem or what, because I'm also having just weird intermittent issues too, where the locomotive lights will flash. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Maybe there's like hair that's gotten up into locomotive's wheels too. I don't know if that could cause an issue. So now you can see I've just backed the train up onto the inner main line. Let me make sure that this switch is thrown that way so it'll go straight. And then we can watch it go around the inner main line over those other, directions. Go over those other turnouts on the other side of the track. Let me give it some speed just to get it around here. Now I'll slow it down so you can see how well it goes over. So you can see it went over that one okay. The lights flashed a little bit there at the end. That one, there's a little flicker there, but could just be going too slow. I don't know, but I really would like the trains to have the ability to go slow because that is more realistic to the scale, because N scale is pretty small. So this is actually still pretty fast if you think about it as if it was a real train. But anyway, we'll figure it out. This is my first layout where I haven't used like the snap track. I used to do HO scale and I had a lot of the Bachmann like snap track. This is the first time I've done all the wiring with bus wires and flex track, so it's all a learning progress. And I've already gone into this layout with the mindset that this is kind of just an experiment and a test. You know, one day I would love to have a much larger layout whenever I have a larger area to build it in, so I'm not too worried. This isn't like a permanent thing or whatever. This isn't like my only layout forever. But anyway, let me stop the train and go over some of the other changes that I've done. So I don't think I've changed much over here. I still have not glued down the mountains. You see, this is one big piece. Been kind of waiting to get all the track glued down, and I think I want to paint the track too before I glue those down, because that'll just be easier. I did decide that I want to put a little river feature over here, and then I added a little bit, like 2 more pieces of foam here to give it a little more of a canyon look there. So we're still planning to have an overpass that goes over here, but now it's going to go over the river also and kind of just stay at the same level. So that'll be a car overpass. I think that'll look pretty good. I really like the canyon. I've got a couple ideas for how I'm going to finish that, but then over here I've got the tunnel mountain. So I've got these 3D printed tunnel portals, and then one back there. So this top piece is all glued together, but I have not glued it down yet. So you can kind of see how I've got it laid out there. That's an access, that'll be an access hole that in the case of a derailment, I can move the table out and at least have a way to get in there and get the cars out. But none of this is glued down yet, so you can see it's just kind of sitting there for now. Okay, you may also have noticed this 3D printed tower. This is supposed to be the AC tower in Marion, Ohio. So I just designed this in Onshape and 3D printed it in 3 sections. So there's like the roof piece. Here, let me zoom out. There's the roof, then there's the building, and then there's like the scaffolding thing. So I printed it out like that, you know, upside down. These are just a test. This isn't going to be the final piece on the layout, but kind of just an experiment to see how well it would turn out. You know, I tried to embed little windows and doors in it, and then I just colored it in with a Sharpie pen. It doesn't look that great, but it's kind of just an experiment. I went ahead and 3D printed another one, and I increased the fineness and also added like a build plate adhesion, which I think made the bottom look a little better. You can kind of see on this one how it curved up on the edge there, and the same thing happened here. That was because there was no build plate adhesion. So I turned that feature on for these two, and you can see that they printed much better. Basically, that just means when it's printed, there's like a little bit of a brim around, and kind of just build this like a base platform to help it stick to the build plate. So anyways, this is another one that I have. Just testing it out, but I think they look relatively good. Let's see the train come by. There's only going to be one, of course, when it's all finished, but now that time it just went over this turnout and it didn't stutter at all. So I don't know, it seems very intermittent. Over there you can see it's kind of stuttering a little bit. can see it even stuttered there a little bit over the diamonds. I don't know, there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it, but maybe it's just that I'm not sure, but I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, it doesn't derail anywhere, so that's good. I just need to figure out these electrical issues. You see it just stuttered there. I don't know what the issue is. Watch it go over this turnout. You see that? It almost comes to a complete stop. Let's go super slow. See, there it's stalled out right there. So I don't know what it is about that exact position. Let me turn off the controller and take a look at exactly where the locomotive is at on the track. So it looks like the two rear axles were over the frog, so we know that's not powered. But this axle was definitely on this part, which should be powered. And then the whole front truck should be on a powered section. And right there's a feeder wire. So I'm not sure. Confusing. But whatever, we'll keep working with it, see if we can figure it out. All right, well, thanks for watching. I'll see you when I've made more progress.